Good morning, everybody. I like Craig's confidence in saying I'm prepared. So this morning, welcome everybody. This morning, I guess if you know, been around for the last few weeks, we've been going through 1 Samuel. And up to now, probably the last couple of weeks in 1 Samuel, the Israelites have been after a new king. So Samuel had been leading them for many years, and the Israelites were after a new king. So in the last couple of chapters, we've sort of seen Samuel anoint a new king. Last week, Pete was talking about in chapter 11 how the king started off in a bit of a slow state when they were looking for him to anoint him. He was in hiding in the baggage, and even after he was anointed as such, he was off still ploughing his fields. Yes? Does that need to go down? Is that better? Excellent. Thanks, Steve. So the king was off ploughing his fields instead of probably keeping an eye on things. But eventually the Spirit of the Lord did come upon Saul, and it says in the Bible that he became a different person, and he was able to defeat the Amorites, which were besieging a town in the north of Israel there. And so that victory's happened, and today we're going into chapter 12, which is sort of just straight after that. And this is entitled Samuel's Farewell Speech. And it's a bit of a misnomer because Samuel still hangs around a little bit, so he still hangs around and gives advice to the king. But it's more of his farewell speech in that he's probably no longer the official leader. So we'll run through that. We're going to we'll read through chapter 12. I did have it up on the screen, but it's death by PowerPoint. So I think it might be better if you have a look in your Bible, or you can just listen as I read along. And so we're going to start in Samuel. It's probably about a third the way through the Bible-ish. I've got it written down so I don't have to find it. And we're going to start from chapter 11 at verse 14. And then Samuel said to the people, so this is after their victory, "Come, let us go to Gilgal and there renew the kingship." So all the people went to Gilgal and made Saul king in the presence of the Lord. And they sacrificed fellowship offerings before him, and Saul and all the other Israelites held a great celebration. Samuel said to all Israel, "I have listened to everything you said to me, and I have set a king over you. Now you have a king as your leader. As for me," so I guess this is his farewell bit, "I am old and grey, and my sons are here with you. I have been your leader from my youth until this day. Here I stand." And at this point he's sort of, I guess, having a bit of an appraisal of his leadership. And so he's asking if there's anything that the Israelites have against him. So he's saying, testify against me in the presence of the Lord and his anointed. Whose ox have I taken? Whose donkey have I taken? Whom have I cheated? Whom have I oppressed? From whose hand have I accepted a bribe to make me shut my eyes? If I've done any of these things, I'll make it right. You have not cheated or oppressed us, they replied. You have not taken anything from anyone's hand. And Samuel said to them, "The Lord is my witness against you, and also his anointed is witness this day, that you have not found anything in my hand." His witness, they said. So that's his first part of his speech. He's, I guess, looking at a bit of an appraisal on his leadership. The next part is more of looking back and looking about the great things that God has done for them. And so he gives a bit of a... I think this will be the next one. So it gives a bit of a summary of, I guess, the history with God and the relationship with God. From verse 6 it says, "It is the Lord that appointed Moses and Aaron and brought your ancestors out of Egypt. Now then, stand here, because I'm going to confront you with evidence before the Lord as to all the righteous acts performed by the Lord for you and your ancestors. After Jacob entered Egypt, they cried to the Lord for help, and the Lord sent Moses and Aaron, who brought your ancestors out of Egypt, to settle in this place. They forgot the Lord, who sold them into the hand of Sisera, the commander of the army of Hazor, and into the hands of the Philistines and the king of Moab, who fought against them. They cried out to the Lord and said, "We have sinned. We have forsaken the Lord and served the Baals and the Ashtaroths." Interesting to know that those Baals and Ashtaroths, they were the, gods of the Canaanites, the gods of the people in those different areas. And they were the gods of thunder and rain. So keep that in mind when we get down to the next section. "But now deliver us from the hands of our enemies," they said, "and we'll serve you." And so the Lord sent a number of people, including Samuel, and delivered them from the hands of their enemies so that you could live in safety. So that's a bit of a history lesson that Samuel's given them, saying how great God has served them in the past, how God's been faithful. And now he's sort of bringing them up to this point where they wanted a king. And so in verse 12, it says, "But when you saw Nahash, the king of Ammonites, who was besieging the town to the north, was moving against you, you said to me, 'No, we want a king to rule over us, even though the Lord your God was your king. Now here is the king you have chosen, the one you have asked for. See, the Lord has set a king over you. If you fear the Lord and serve and obey him, and do not rebel against his commands, and if both you and the king who reigns over you follow the Lord your God, good. But if you do not obey the Lord, and if you rebel against his commands, his hand will be against you, as it was his ancestors. Now stand still and see this great thing that the Lord is about to do in your eyes." So he's moving now into a bit of a show. He's sort of saying that the Lord is still powerful and the Lord is still in control. So he's saying, "Is it not wheat season now?" We see we want to the next one. We're still in the good one. Excellent. "Is it not wheat season now? I'll call on the Lord to send thunder and rain, and you will realise what an evil thing you did in the eyes of the Lord when you asked for a king." And then Samuel called to the Lord. That same day, the Lord sent thunder and rain. So all the people stood in awe of the Lord and Samuel. And the people said to Samuel, "Pray to the Lord your God for your servants, that we will not die, for we have added to all our other sins the evil of asking for a king." And so we get to probably the final summary here, and this last bit's probably the bit we'll be focusing on. And he says, "Do not be afraid," said Samuel. This is where he sort of gives a bit of advice to his people. He says, "You have done all this evil, yet do not turn away from the Lord, but serve the Lord with all your heart. Do not turn away after other useless idols. They can do you no good, nor can they rescue you, because they are useless. For the sake of his great name of the Lord, he will not reject his people, because the Lord was pleased to make you his own. As for me, far be it from me that I should sin against the Lord by failing to pray for you, and I'll teach you the way that is good and right. But be sure to fear the Lord and serve him faithfully with all your heart." So there's probably a few things we'll run through fairly quickly. There's probably four sort of major points there that Samuel's sort of giving a bit of a summary for the people. He talks about fearing the Lord, serving the Lord with all your heart. Don't turn away from useless idols. And the last one is considering the great things that he's done for you. And probably when you're looking at this passage, you're probably thinking this sounds a little bit familiar. And it is a bit familiar, because some 350 years earlier, Moses was leading the people, and they'd just been wandering around in the wilderness for about 40 years. And he was standing at the edge of the Promised Land. And Moses knew that he wasn't going to be going to the Promised Land. So he gave some similar advice to the Israelites. And it's remarkably similar. So I wonder whether Samuel's sort of taken a leaf out of that book there. And in fact, if you read Deuteronomy, if you've got a chance to read Deuteronomy, basically it's Moses giving a reminder to the people before they go into the land as to how they should live and the great things that God had done for them up to that point. So there's a couple of verses there in Deuteronomy chapter 6. Moses is telling the people, it's going, the Lord our God, the Lord is one. Love the Lord your God with all your heart and all your soul and all your strength. These commandments that I give you today, be them on your hearts, impress them on your children. Talk about them when you sit at home and when you walk along the road, when you lie down and when you get up. And also Deuteronomy 30, it talks about that you may love the Lord your God, listen to his voice, hold fast to him, for the Lord is your life. So it's some great advice as they're entering into the promised land. And similarly in Deuteronomy 6, it says, fear the Lord. We've got that, the fearing of the Lord again. Serve him only and take your oaths in his name. Do not follow other gods, the other gods of the people around you. For the Lord your God, who is among you, is a jealous God. And do what is right and good in the Lord's sight, that it may go well with you. So what we see there, we see I guess, similarities where Moses and Samuel telling the people, giving them advice, letting them, remind them who God is. And in the context of, I guess, chapter 10 and chapter 11, where the Israelites have selected a king, there's probably some, I guess, background in what Moses and Samuel are talking about, in that they're probably saying subtly, who do you want to lead you? Who do you want to serve? What are the characteristics of the persons or the things that master your life? Who are you following? And that's relevant to the Israelites as they were about to enter into the promised land. And it's relevant to the Israelites as they got a new king and they were sort of going down that path. And it's also probably relevant to us today as we go about our day-to-day lives. Who do we want to lead us? Who do we follow? What things are mastering our life? And so we'll run fairly quickly through the four points that Samuel summarised. Because I guess all of us are probably heading not necessarily into new things. So, a lot of the high schoolers, some will be heading off into study next year or into employment. There might be people heading off into new jobs or different phases of life. So there might be people with having kids, starting a family. There might be others at the other end where they're retiring, and there might be just others who are still going through the mundane, the same old. Yet I think all these things still apply to each of us. So the first one for us to remember is to fear the Lord and to love the Lord with all your heart and with all your soul and with all your strength. And certainly the fear the Lord bit is sometimes that looks a bit contradictory. We've still got the fear the Lord and love the Lord. And I guess with the fear of the Lord, it's sort of showing the respect for God's power. We know that God is God, God is the Lord, but in his majesty, he's the king. So when we're talking about Israelites wanted a new king, they were in fact rejecting God as their king. But there's a sense of loving for us to love the Lord. So there's that sense of that relationship in that we do have a king, he's powerful, but there's that love and that relationship with him. The second one is serving and obeying the Lord with all your heart. And sometimes I guess when we talk about serving and obeying, we might be thinking about a lot of hard work, and sometimes that can be work. But when we look at Deuteronomy 30, verse 20, it talks about listening to his voice, for the Lord is your life. And serving and obeying is, I guess, that, listening to his voice and then putting that in action. And it's obeying what he says, and it's using our time and our abilities to serve him. And it's really serving him in his purposes. So God's got purposes and God's got plans, and it's the opportunity for us to work with him. And what he says is these plans will bring you life. He says, for the Lord is your life. The third point is do not turn to useless idols. And I guess it's probably funny a bit in our day, so probably wouldn't have too many people that we know that might have a little wooden or gold statue in the corner of their house that they worship. But there are certainly things that we put in the place of God, and they can be physical things, of course. They could be people, or they could even be ourselves. It goes back when he's talking about do not turn to useless idols. It's turning back, I guess, Samuel saying, who do you want to rule over you, or what things are ruling over you? And if you have a chance to have a read through the book of Isaiah, because it's quite an interesting book, and I quite like it because there's some passages there where it appears that God's a bit sarcastic about the Israelites and their idols, because he compares them. He says, compare these idols to me. And so what he's saying, if you have a look in Isaiah, he sort of talks about the Baals and things, and he says, you have to cart them around on donkeys, you have to prop them up to make sure they don't fall off the shelf. He's saying, you have to get your gold and give it to the goldsmith, and he has to make it into something. You've got to carry it around. He likens it saying, you've got a bit of wood, you chop half it off and make it into the idol, and the other half you cook your dinner with. So there's a lot of passage there in Isaiah where he says, you've got these useless things that you're following, but there's me. I'm the real, the real thing. I'm God. So when I guess Samuel talks about these gods that they cannot rescue you and they're useless, and we compare that to God, the idols are can be burdensome. So a lot of things that we fill up our times with can create burdens on us. And when we compare that to God, in effect, He's carried that burden. So Matt talked about that in communion this morning, about He took on that burden for us. It says, "Come to me," in Matthew, Jesus says, "for all who are weary and burdened, and I'll give you rest. Take my yoke upon you and learn from me, for I am gentle and humble in heart, and you'll find rest for your souls. For my yoke is easy and my burden is light." In Isaiah it says, "For I am he who will sustain you, and I will rescue you." So it's comparing God and these other things in our lives as the burdensome things, and then there's God who can relieve us of those burdens. The other idol Isaiah sort of talks about briefly, if you do read through Isaiah chapter 2, he talks about humans. So a lot of time we prop up humans as idols, and there's a lot of great people around, and a lot of wise people around as well. But it's important not to, put our trust fully in what they say. We do need to, take what they say and compare it to what God says as well. In Isaiah it says, "To whom will you liken me that we can be compared? Stop trusting in mere humans who have but a breath in their nostrils. Why hold them in esteem?" And Isaiah sort of compares that to God and talks about his splendour of his majesty. He's saying, "I am God and there is no other, and my purposes will stand." So it's the comparison of God and his majesty compared to just, other people. So we've spoken briefly here about, the idol bit, about allowing things or other things to influence our lives or rule in our lives. One of the interesting things is, I think Matt talked in his communion about the covenant, the new covenant that God has with us through his Son. And in the Old Testament there was a lot of covenants. There's one with God, but there was human covenants as well. And last week Pete talked about the besieging of the town to the north, and the Ammonite leader, he was prepared to enter a covenant with that town, and his covenant was that I'd make a treaty with you only on the condition that I gouge out the right eye of everybody of you. And that doesn't particularly sound like a good covenant to enter into. And sometimes, I guess, when we let other things rule our lives, either indirectly or directly, we need to consider what is that covenant we're sort of entering into that we're not aware of. What is it costing us? Is it leading us away from God? Are we being enslaved by that? But we know that God's covenant, we talked about the covenant of life. And in Malachi chapter 2, it says that God's covenant is one of life and peace. The last point we'll run through is that the last one is saying, consider the great things God has done for you. So as Samuel spoke to the people, he was talking about the great things God has done to them in terms of how God rescued them out of Egypt and how God was faithful to them. I guess in terms of that 350 years from when they entered the Promised Land up to that point where they asked for a new king. So sometimes we do get caught up in our daily lives without considering what God is doing for us and what God has done for us. And so it's just, I think, to stop and consider the great things God has done for us individually, or as a group of people, or as a town. I think Craig had some prayers earlier where we were having thanks to God, and I think that's one of the great things in terms of our services, where we've got the chance to thank God for the great things He has done for us. But also we need to remember to do that in our day-to-day lives. So you'll be happy we're getting to the end. So just in closing, I guess as we go through our day-to-day lives, whether we're entering a new promised land as such, or we're just trudging through the wilderness of our day-to-day lives, just consider probably those 4 things. Remember to love the Lord with all your heart and soul and strength. Serve and obey Him with all your heart. Don't turn to useless idols. And also to consider the great things that God has done for you. Probably just as closing, one of the interesting things I find at the end of Samuel's farewell address was, even though he didn't agree with the Israelites in terms of wanting a king, he did say, far be it from me that I should sin by failing to pray for you. And I'll teach you the way that is good and right. And so I think that's a reminder for us to continue to pray, continue to talk to God, even for those people we might not agree with, or heading down paths that we might not agree with as well. So that's probably the 5th one as well, just remember to pray for others. So I might close in prayer. Yeah, thank you, Lord, for your great love, and we thank you for the opportunity to go through your word. We thank you for Samuel. We thank you for his leadership and his wisdom. And we thank you that you are God, and we have the opportunity to serve you. And it's not a domineering relationship, that there's love and there's a relationship there, that you love us and you're pleased for us to be your people, and we can love your rule over us. We pray for this coming week that we might consider these things. Amen. Thank you, Craig.